that the different perspectives, aside from the ministry's objective, is taken into account with this bill. And I remember I heard one of my colleagues on the other side speaking enthusiastically, saying, "But don't you see, this is just going to be great. It's exactly what we wanted." But we have to be careful who else is caught. What are the unintended consequences of legislation? Because that's part of our job, is to make sure that we've looked at that. What are the additional risks that we've created for others that we hadn't anticipated? What else could happen as a result of this? So, I have questions about the public interest in this bill, and I have hesitations because I think the bill may be contrary to the public interest. I think it has the potential to water down the public complaints process. And I also really am concerned about how the definition of who can participate in this is very narrow. And I don't think that's part of why I think it's not in the public interest. If we start to say only these certain people are allowed to express a concern about police behavior, given those immense powers that the police do have over individuals, I think we create a very, dangerous isn't the right word, a very untenable situation. So someone who, is under the control of the police, let me put it that way, they may be allowed to complain, but frankly, they may be quite frightened about complaining and may be worried about other things. We have a case in the Assembly recently where, a couple was picked up by the police, and therefore their children were then picked up by Children's Services. And that's, that's not uncommon, frankly, but for an individual, they may be concerned about pursuing a complaint because of those additional consequences that flow from that. So when you have organizations in the community like the Criminal Trial Lawyers Association, or some of the others like E-Fry or John Howard, which are organizations that move a lot between all of the different sides that are involved in policing and enforcement and the judiciary, we need to be able to bring them into the discussion and have them participate in a complaints process, because it may be that they're the ones that end up bringing forward the complaint. And I don't want to see a situation where we narrow too much who is able to bring those complaints forward. And I'm sorry, my next thought just escaped out of my head. I should have written it down. Sorry about that. So I think that I've heard my colleagues talking about this, and I know that there's some real concerns about it. I'm not sure if we're looking at bringing forward amendments, which I think we do want to see something change around the disciplinary and complaint process. So we don't want to simply abandon this bill, but I would expect that my colleague will be bringing forward amendments to be able to try and address some of what is in the Act that we have concerns about. So I won't. I'll wait until Committee of the Whole to be able to do the commentary on more of the sectional analysis. But that is my observation at a first glance, and we're debating in second reading the principle of the bill, and you can see that I'm struggling with it. I mean, clearly I believe that there is something that needs to happen in this process. Do I think this is what needs to happen, or what's in this legislation is the right way to approach this? That's what I'm struggling with, because I think it's not. And we need to be very, very cautious. I mean, we write the rules here. We expect someone else to enforce them. and to lay charges according to what we've done. And then if there is a discrepancy or an argument about whether that was appropriate, it moves into the judiciary, and at that point a judge is trying to figure out if everybody did the job they were supposed to do. So it often flows back to us, and I know there tends to be complaints about judge-made law, but frankly, whenever you hear that argument, it means we didn't do a very good job as legislators, because we didn't make it clear enough what we were intending, and we didn't write the legislation well enough to get rid of those inconsistencies and unintended consequences. So that's what I'm asking for here, is a very careful look at this. I'm a nice middle-income gal, very plain household. My parents were teachers, nothing special there. You know, I had a good upbringing, went to public schools. I'm a pretty average Albertan, and I obey the rules. And I obey the rules until I perceive an unfairness in it that is so one-sided that I'm going to start to fight to change the rules. And I think that's what we need to make sure that we're not creating, is that kind of situation. So I'm being heckled, I'm sure, with great fondness from the other side. I appreciate the heckling. Thank you for listening to what I'm saying, because it is an indicator you were. But I think we need to be very cautious with what we're going ahead with here. And I look forward to the debate around this bill, because I think it's an important one, and I encourage as many people to get involved as they can. Thank you very much for allowing me to put my concerns and outline the context of where I think the Act needs to be very careful while we're in second reading. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.